In the aftermath, the women explored the broken remains of the ship. One of the others, Sherry, asked Kalinda if she could open the hatch, and Kalinda was thankful she could put her engineering experience to some use. She flipped up the access panel next to the hatch, bypassed the controls, and then both pushed, using their weight and strength to force the portal wide. Pale sand spilled in through the crack, and a peek out the door revealed an endless expanse of white. And the lack of the rest of their ship. Half had been completely torn away as they'd tumbled into the alien planet's atmosphere. Scorching heat burned through the open hatch. Dry air made Kalinda cough and choke. Twin suns blazed from above, practically cooking them with the high temperatures. Kalinda's vision blurred, the brightness blinding her. There was a flash of white light, and then... Their first night on an alien world, and Kalinda couldn't get comfortable, lying under a makeshift tent propped against the side of their crashed ship. The others slept all around her, exhausted from the crash and their attempt to gather food, water, and supplies necessary to their survival. Some held out hope that they would soon be rescued, but Kalinda knew better. She had examined the wrecked hull of their ship and the communications equipment that remained. There was no chance of getting a message out, a call for help. Even with her skills, there were no supplies on hand that she could use to build something from scratch. Kalinda stirred on her pallet, the sense of being watched drifting over her in a gentle wave. Just one of the other women. That was her first thought, anyway. Then a cool breath bathed her face. Cool, not warm like she expected from another human. She opened her eyes, and there, leaning over her and overtaking her vision, a hulking, gray-skinned alien with a reptilian face and pale gray scales. The alien was naked except for leather straps and belts that crisscrossed his body, weapons dangling from each one. He leered at her, his gray eyes roaming over her body from head to foot and back again, and she shuddered beneath his stare. Claw-tipped fingers grabbed at her, wrapping around her arms, and she screamed. She kicked and twisted in his grasp, fighting to be free of the lizard-like alien, but he held fast. He pinned her to his chest and pressed his blunt, lipless mouth to her neck. Something cool rubbed her skin, and she shuddered, imagining what touched her and hating every option her mind conjured. She cringed and snapped her eyes closed, still struggling for freedom, but the beast refused to release her. At twice her size, she wasn't surprised that he held her with ease. Trying to fight this being off was like a bird attempting to escape a crocodile's jaws. The alien's scales scraped and rasped against her skin, while his claws dug into her pale flesh. At any moment he could rip out her throat and spill her blood on the cold, pale sands, and no one could save her. A glance around the area proved the futility of attempting to gain her freedom. Kalinda wasn't the only one held captive by a lizard beast. A strange voice sounded in the darkness, guttural rumblings coming out of the darkness and forming words she couldn't understand. Someone snatched her attacker and hauled her from his arms. She tumbled to the ground and then scrambled backward until she felt the hard hull of the ship at her back. Then she froze in place, unwilling to take her attention off the one who held her prisoner only moments ago. In front of her, two gray-scaled aliens shouted foreign words at each other. Even her transcom implant couldn't decipher the words. She didn't understand anything they said, but based on the tone and aggressive postures, they argued with rising heat. One even drew his sword and held the other at bay with a sharpened blade. More reptilian aliens appeared, some covered in red or brown scales intermingled with those with gray scales. The red aliens pulled the gray aliens away from the group of humans. Some brandished weapons and shouted in threatening tones. The threats didn't faze some of the gray lizardmen. Then another strode into the group, taller and more muscular than all the others. He stood rigid and raised his chin as he stared down at them, shouting in a commanding tone. The other gray aliens shrank back and lowered their heads, weapons quickly sheathed. The tall, commanding alien looked at Kalinda